for the longest time, I was searching for my purpose. It was like, life's going to be good then.
Everyone is living their purpose right now. Is it closer or further away from how you want to, like what you want to embody and how you want to live this life?
So, getting back on this conversation of like how you and I have both over the last couple of years, like watched each other evolve, like watched each other to like, as you were saying, help each other to grow, right? Like it's never been about this hierarchy. And it's one of the things I love about Somatic so much is that it's more about how can you show up in the space? How can you hold the space? How can you be there with another person versus being better than another person or greater than another person, or that like you're more spiritually evolved than another person, but instead, how can we just meet each other and be more in tune with one another?
Yeah, it's this deep desire inside of us that wants to be all knowing. And I've combated that for a while. It's this, we want to be, it's not even that we want to be better, it's that we want to feel, I think it goes deep down to like, are we worthy, right? It's not about
Mm.
being better, but can we prove our worth, prove that I know something, I know something and I'm valuable. But we think it's based on um, how much wisdom we have, or you see this. I see this within teams, specifically in business. It's like having a leader that claims they know everything, and it's it can be great in a way of like people do need leadership and a direction, but there's a difference within like there's an egoicness of like I know anything and I'm not open versus it's so much better when you have a leader that says this is the direction that we're going and is confident and sure and guiding and leading everyone, but is also like I actually don't know and let's test and let's iterate
Yeah.
because it's always an iteration, and it takes a tremendous amount of pressure off you to just say I don't know. That's one of the most powerful statements that you can use, and it's actually very very wise to use that, but it's also very scary if you're still caught in the loop of like am I need to prove my value, I need to prove my worth. And this is a deep thing that we teach in the trainings is you will soon feel your own rewiring of how much you've placed value on how much you output and how much you do versus how your value is actually how much you can be, how much you can
Yeah.
embody. Um,
Yeah.
that's a deep one.
It makes me think like I've been doing just a lot of reflection over this last month. October is my birthday month too. So it's like when this time of year comes around, it's just there's this tendency to really reflect and think back to like what came before and how is that leading to what's going to come next. And I continually come back to this like concept of like living your purpose. And like I do feel like I'm truly living my purpose doing the work that we're doing. But this idea around for the longest time, I was searching for my purpose. It was like when I finally found my purpose, or at least this was the story I was telling myself, that like, okay, life's gonna be good then. Like I'll finally have, just like what you were speaking to, I'll finally have this like validation that I'm enough if I'm living my purpose. And yet now that I'm living my purpose, there's still these things that come up of like, oh, maybe I'm not doing enough, or maybe I can do more. But really, it's like, how can I actually show up just more as myself? And like, what if that's actually the purpose?
Yeah, for me, that's so true. Yesterday I was journaling. Yesterday was my 34th birthday, and I always love to just reflect. And one of the reflections was someone asked me, like, what are your goals for this next year? And I was reflecting back, and I watched my inner critic and the voice inside, like, oh my God, I haven't set any goals. Like, I'm I'm not a high performer. I'm not like, I need to set goals. I'm not organized. I'm not doing enough because I don't have these big lofty goals for my direction of my life. And I think back and I'm like, well, they also asked me the question that was, um, do you feel like at 34 years old, you've accomplished like what you have wanted to, since you were younger, when you imagined yourself at 34, have you accomplished what you wanted to? And I look back and I'm like, wow, I actually have never had very rigid goals or a rigid sense of purpose. Um, I did for a little bit, and I'll talk about the detriment and what it caused for me because it actually can be incredibly painful. But I was reflecting that I actually don't like to set hard goals because I actually want to focus more on my ability to navigate day to day life.
Yeah.
I think it's much more of a valuable skill set to be able to navigate day to day life and decisions and like your emotions and finding clarity in the moment versus having this snapshot of what it is that you want. I think is incredibly important, but it's kind of like plans. There's a quote that's like, plans are a lie, but they lead us to the truth.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like plans are always a lie because they're never going to work out exactly how you planned it.
100%.
And a lot of us have this rigid, controlling, proving part of ourselves that is similar to what we just talked about, that wants to have things so concrete. And a lot of the times, the more stressed we are, the more that we crave stasis and control, because we don't have the nervous system spaciousness and capacity to handle moment to moment things, right? Where
Right.
we're walking around on our last nerve, where we don't have any space to actually navigate day to day life in a direction that we want to go, versus pinning down these goals or pinning down this ideal purpose, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's this is really fascinating, Jaggers. And hearing you say that kind of makes me think of like human design, right? Like each of us has this like unique blueprint in which we are kind of built. And for one person, having goals may be super helpful. It may be the driving force that moves them through their life. Whereas other people, and it sounds like you and I are similar in this way, where goals just add more pressure and it actually
Yeah.
creates more anxiety and more just like angst of like, I need to be somewhere other than where I'm at right now.
Exactly. It's the trap of self improvement, man.
Yeah.
If we're in a place of trying to improve ourselves, then we're creating the opposing force that we're not doing enough, we aren't, that we need to be improved because where we're at is subpar, versus I'd rather learn how to dance in the moment. That's going to be much more valuable for me to lead and direct and have this compass for my life versus, yeah, we put so much pressure on ourselves on what we should do, what we need to become. It's a very slippery slope of being able to follow moment to moment, and like that's how life actually is, right?
Yeah.
We only have, like, obviously we have technology and we're talking through Riverside and school right now, but our nervous systems really are designed to deal with our immediate reality, and we're incredible at projecting into the future, which helps in so many ways. But we forget that when we project into the future, that we have to set that and kind of forget it so that we can actually come back here in the moment and navigate day to day life. Because we'll never get there if we're continuing to put pressure on ourselves in the moment.
Right.
Then all that's going to do is just beat us up, and then we're tired. We experience anxiety and depression, and we suppress our emotions, or there's all these different pressures that keep us from actually getting to where we want to go because we're not actually able to flow in the moment with life.
Yeah. It makes me think of that quote where depression is when you're stuck in the past, anxiety is when you're stuck in the future, but peace is when you're in the present.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, how much pressure do we put on like reanalyzing what happened in the past, or trying to think about all the various different ways that we can make things happen in the future, when like when we actually are present in the moment and we just kind of allow things to unfold, there's a really great possibility that it unfolds in a much more beautiful way than we ever could have tried to control or contrive on our own. But
Yeah.
that constant trying to control, and I can think back to so many times in my life where like this was the case, of just trying to control every little facet, thinking that okay, that's actually going to bring me closer to where I want to get to. And so like this kind of roundabout way of getting here, Jaggers, is like, I can think back to when I finally stopped putting that pressure on myself to get to that certain direction, that new opportunities would start presenting themselves, and like new possibilities of what, like, okay, well, maybe this could be my purpose, or maybe this could be my purpose. And it really wasn't until learning more about how the body communicates, the education on the nervous system, that I really started to, instead of looking outside of myself for that purpose, I started looking inside of myself for that purpose, and really reflecting through holding sessions and then teaching these trainings of what feelings it was bringing about in me, and the satisfaction it was seeing other people work through their things just by connecting deeper to themselves. And like it really brings me back to this concept of, what if just being you, just being present in the moment, it is the purpose? And if that is so simple, what can people do to let go of that pressure of needing to find the purpose, but instead just looking at their purpose as just being you?
Yeah, that's so good, Adam. There's so much there. What comes up for me is, and I say this all the time, and this is from Thomas Hubel, is that presence is integrated history. And it's really hard for us to be present in the moment if we haven't integrated and digested our past, but not from just a mind level, from a body level, right? So it's, I mean, somatic breathwork and holding sessions as a practitioner is such a great metaphor for this, because you can't, you can either be with somebody or you can measure it, but you can't do the same at the same time, or you can't do both of them at the same time. I think that's like the Higgs boson theory or whatever. It's like you can experience a particle, or you can experience reality, or you can measure it and it changes it based on what you're doing,
Right.
but you cannot do both. So you can try to measure purpose or you can be purpose, but you can't do both at the same time. It's like when you're working with somebody, you can try to measure the emotion that they're having. Like, and I talk about this often. It's like, I can look at somebody and it looks like anger, so I'm going to measure that as anger, and I'm going to go do the anger technique, versus like, I'm just going to go over there and I'm going to match them and I'm going to dance with them, and I'm going to be as present as possible as I can in that, because it might not be anger. Maybe it's power. Maybe it wants to go from that to like deep sadness. And it's, can I actually be present in the moment in the dance? And the way that I try to think about it and feel into it is that, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but my definition of purpose is the meaning that we're making in our life.
Mm.
It's the meaning that we're making, and that is happening in the present moment. Like, the meaning that we're making is like, whether you like it or not, there is a meaning that's being made from your existence.
Mm.
And you have choice on it, or you don't have to have choice, right? This is the kind of free will versus fate argument, meaning
Right.
that right now, everything that you are, everything that you've done, everything that you're doing right now is making meaning. Right now we're making meaning by podcasting.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like purpose is, well, how close is this meaning that I'm making? How close is it to the meaning that I want to make? Right? How close is it to the actual true desire inside of me of the direction of my life? So everyone is living their purpose right now. Their living purpose. They might not be living their purpose, meaning that it's the thing that they want, right? But you are living purpose. And it's whether or not is that purpose that you're living right now, is it closer or further away from how you want to, like what you want to embody and how you want to live this life. So it's only happening in the present moment. Our life is a series of choices, and those choices happen right now.
Yeah.
It's happening right now. And then the accumulation of all that becomes our life and the meaning that we're making. But it's happening from this present moment right now. And are you fully engaged in the dance? And only from that place can you move the needle of purpose closer to what you want it to be, or is it just drifting further away? It's kind of like how we talk about alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. And that that's an interesting question that you're bringing alignment into this aspect too, because it when I look back before I kind of got on my spiritual path, before I started doing more of like the self-discovery work, I was very much a consumer materialist, just like the majority of the population, and following a path that at the time I really felt was my purpose. But then as time went on, there were very subtle things that looking back, I should have been aware that my body was communicating that like this is out of alignment, that it's not
Mm-hmm.
really my purpose, that my beingness is actually wanting to shift into a different direction. And so like I'm interested in, and maybe you've had the same experience in your life of where you start to notice when the certain path that you're walking down doesn't feel like it's the thing anymore. But maybe you've put so much time, energy, effort into going down that path that it's like, how do you make that decision to like stop, shift, pivot, and move in the direction that does feel more in alignment?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good one. It reminds me of the sunken cost principle, where like if you're in a relationship and you've invested in that and for 10 years and it's not in alignment with you anymore, it's going to be harder to get out of that relationship and correct your life because of the sunken cost, right? You've spent
Yeah.
this much time, this much energy, and a lot of the times we look at it as even if something is ending, like this chapter of my life is ending, well, that's a lot of us in our mind, we just label it as it's a loss, like versus endings are not bad. They start new beginnings, and it actually might be a win that something is an ending. So it's a lot of framing in our internal world when we're going through a turning of the book, a turning
Yeah.
of the chapter, right? And um, it's it's tough. It reminds me a lot of the individuation process that we go through as a child and as we go through in relationships where we're constantly merging with another person or our parents, right? We're
Mhm.
completely merged as a baby. Our nervous systems are one. And then we slowly start to crawl away, and then something scary happens and we come back. And then we move a little bit further out and we can walk, and then we come back. And then we go out and test different things in the world and go to school, and then we come back. And it's this loop of connection and individuation. And I think the same thing happens with chapters in our life. We go through loops, right? We go through, I'm fully connected to my purpose and I feel so good in the way that I'm living right now and I'm all in. And then something happens where it's like, oh, it's not bad or good, but it's a time to turn the page and it's time to individuate from that purpose again. And then we'll like, and then we go into the transitional phase of individuation, which I look at it from a purpose standpoint is the transitional phase is to go into um, less focal vision of knowing exactly what I want to do to peripheral vision of opening up my reality and testing and trying different things, and kind of just protecting my spaciousness to taste the different flavors of things that are being presented to me in the moment so that I can, while I'm doing that, I'm also deeply connected to my own somatic awareness because there will be a spark of aliveness that comes up when I'm in this open space that will then naturally shift me to then want to become very focal again, and then I find the next sort of, you could say purpose, but it's the next thing I want to merge with, right? Purpose is
Yeah.
happening the whole time, but it's what am I merging with right now, and is that closer or further away from how I'm trying to live?
Mm. So this in a way you're kind of tying into what you were saying earlier of like part of the whole purpose of things is like finding meaning in what you're doing, right? And if you're no longer finding that meaning in what you're doing, then that's shifted away from your purpose. Now, how do you
Yeah,
find the meaning in what else that really
yeah,
sparks your aliveness? Like that I think is the thing that's important. And it makes me think of like you and I are both actually in the process of ending one of our 7 year cycles. You familiar with the seven
mm-hmm.
year cycles of life?
Oh yeah,
And so it's interesting of like we're both in this like final year before starting this new cycle. It's just we're just in differing cycles, right? Of like it's this constant
yeah,
going inward and then going outward. And like I think that's what's so beautiful and in a way of being ADHD and having so many different interests and
oh
different
yeah,
things that I like to do, that it has led to being more comfortable in like having this freedom that purpose doesn't have to just be one singular path. Like I can be purposeful in holding a session for somebody. I can be purposeful in having a conversation with my wife or with a friend. I can be purposeful in just driving my car. I can be purposeful in just taking my dog on a walk. That, like, actually, purpose doesn't have to be one singular defined path, but can be all of the paths at the same time.
I think that awareness, Adam, is incredibly special, and I think that comes from, the only way you get to that place is by doing enough integration of your past, because we've all had things that have happened in our life that have been doors that have just been slammed on us. That's like, oh, I just got fired,
Yeah.
or someone just cheated on me, or it's kind of those like universal sledgehammer moments that just crush us in the moment, that we think, oh my God, life is over, or
Yeah.
like everything's going to shit. But and then you spend enough time digesting the past that you're like, whoa, that needed to happen because then this happened and then this happened, right? And so you're making meaning on all of those situations, meaning that you're making sense of it. You're making, the more that we are integrating our past, and this goes from a bottom up standpoint, meaning that I've integrated the things that my body has needed to do, like I've completed what my body has needed to do. I have felt the emotions that I've needed to feel. And that's both going into the past, and then ideally we're able to just move through it in the present moment. So it's not, we don't have this emotional backlog that's building up. And then I've also been able to, in my mind, see the story of how things have shaped me into who I am right now. Like I look at, there's been some chapters where I worked in human resources for a microchip company that like was just not anything what I wanted to do with my life. But I look back at it, I'm like, oh, this time wasn't, it wasn't wasted. The last thing we want to feel like is our time was wasted. I learned a tremendous amount in that chapter, and that's added up into now. So it's kind of like the Da Vinci effect in a way, where we look at all the places and spaces and the things that we've gone through, and we have been able to see how those have shaped us and helped us.
Mm-hmm.
And then that in the moment, it allows us to kind of see purpose happening in everything. Oh, there's just a door that was slammed on me. This person wants to walk out of my life, or this friendship is ending. Well, I'm able to like know that, wow, there's probably a greater force of alignment that's happening here. And it's probably like, if I'm connected to my own ability to move through life with my internal compass, then I know that I can navigate this, and I'll be able to make purpose from it, because purpose is happening right now, right? But that state that you're talking about is, you know, you're able to have this meta awareness of everything that I'm doing is an opportunity for me to be purpose, right?
Yeah.
Because it's happening right now. It's not this paradigm of the snapshot in my mind of what it's going to look like when I'm living my purpose. It's right here, right now, and it's based on my ability to make sense of my past and navigate my present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something really important that I want to bring about when you were talking about the story. And that for me, I think was one of the biggest catalysts in helping me to get to this point of being able to see all paths, whether I label them good or bad, all being a part of steering me down the path that I'm meant to walk. And when I could recognize the stories that I was playing in my head based upon these events of having doors slam in my face or being, slapped in the face with a universal 2x4, of like these moments that like when I was going through it, it was really challenging. It was really difficult. And in that time, I didn't see the reason why. It just was like, why does it have to be this way? Woe is me. Like really falling into the victimhood of moving through those instances. But now being able to look back and seeing that much of the stories that I was telling myself that were perpetuating the suffering through those instances weren't even true. Those were just stories that I was telling myself that actually didn't have any relevance to what was actually happening.
Yeah.
But being able to see those stories and being able to accept that they are just stories, and if they are just stories, well, I can close the chapter on that story and I can open up a new one. And then if I can drop that story, I can actually see that instance for the beauty that it was. Thinking back to like a relationship that was really difficult that ended in exactly the way that you said of, my partner cheated on me and like I couldn't understand what I did wrong because in my mind, I had been the best boyfriend. I had done everything that I needed to do. Now looking back, it just showed that she was not in alignment with the life that I wanted to live, that I was meant to live.
Mm.
That ending was actually the opening to one of the best relationships that I've ever been in, and that's the marriage that I've been in for 12 years now. That like
Yeah.
sometimes these endings are actually, instead of a door closing, it's a door opening that we never even knew was there.
Yeah. So well said. And it's, I look at it as this is all coming from a byproduct of somebody who is their consciousness and their awareness sits in their head and it's disconnected
Yeah,
from the body,
right.
right? When 90% of humanity, and probably more than that, we are, from a consciousness perspective, they are talking heads, meaning that their identity and everything that they are is associated with the thoughts that are going on inside of them.
Right.
And until, this is why somatic awareness and developing an emotional connection and a physical connection into our body is so important, because without that, we're not able to peel back from like the story. Maybe that's actually not us and who we are, because I'm connected to how my body's feeling or the other sensations that are going on inside of myself. So when we're just trapped and locked in the overthinking, well, it's we're just going to get thrown around by the stories that in our head, and then we're going to get thrown around by the idea of what purpose is. I'm not good enough right now, or I need to be doing more. I should be doing more because this is the snapshot in my mind, and my life doesn't look like that. And so it's all a byproduct of being able to make sense of these things, which is in the body, right? And
Yeah.
um, something that you said, trying to track back, but I put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself for so long to try to find my purpose, and it made me not a fun person to be around
Mm.
because I have so much drive, because I have so much fire. That fuel source wants to go somewhere. But when it was associated with this idea, this very mentally dominant idea of my purpose, which is a very hyper individualized thing, that's a very Western thing, um, it wreaked havoc on me. And I didn't have any space for anything else that could be better than the
Mm.
vision in my head, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm circling back to the reason why I don't set like hard goals is because maybe life has something even better planned for me. And if I have this very narrow thing, because, and also like, who's to say that I know the route that's going to get to
Yeah,
these goals? I'd
for
probably
sure.
be there by now if I knew the route of getting there. Um, so it's until I, I really had this awareness of how do I want to feel when I'm living? Not I want to feel happy all the time, or I want to feel good, right? That's not realistic because life is a wave. But beyond the emotional aspect of things, like how do I want to? Um, what is the posture, like the energetic posture that I want to have in my life, and how does that feel, right?
Yeah.
Outside of the fluctuations, I feel incredibly fulfilled when I'm helping people. And so I don't know what shape that's going to take, but I know that that's how I want to feel, right?
Mm. So what I'm hearing is that really it's more about kind of like we've continually talked on. It's about really connecting with the body and how do things feel moment to moment versus
Mm-hmm.
what do we think about things moment to
Yeah.
moment. Like flipping this idea of trying to understand everything all the time, instead like how can we just feel everything all the time and use those feelings as our navigation and our compass to help us to continue to move forward towards those things that are in alignment, whether that's with our purpose or just the thing that's going to help
Yeah.
us to be more present right now.
So good. And the way that you do that is right now you ask yourself this question, and you might have to sit with it for a little bit. But the question is, what am I resisting?
Mm.
What am I resisting right now? And then the follow-up question, which don't move to this follow-up question too quickly, because the what am I resisting right now, you might have to marinate in that for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then the second follow-up question is, how do I love this resistance? How do I love the resistance? Because that's clarity of your mind does not come from your mind. It comes from your emotional fluidity. It comes from your ability to not run away from feeling an emotion, right? Your ability to, we all have an emotion that we resist. We all have something that we're resisting. And, it's like they say, what you resist persists, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
continue to create the same stuff based on what we're resisting. But the way that we um, uh, find clarity, because I believe that's the big thing here, is how do I connect to the clarity of my purpose? How do I connect to the clarity of how I want to live my life? Is you figure out, and you don't figure out, you more feel the emotion that you're avoiding. Like you have to sit with, because once you have tapped in to all of the different emotions and you have a sense of like, cool, I'm not avoiding anger right now, so I'm good to set boundaries if that's needed. I'm not avoiding my sadness right now, so I'm not suppressing and pushing it down. I'm not avoiding grief right now, so there's not parts of my past that haven't been digested for me to move cleanly into the future, right? I'm not avoiding, if I'm not avoiding an emotion, then I actually have clarity on the direction, because most of us are moving forward into the world based on, I want to feel this way or I want to avoid feeling this way.
Right, right.
So that's where the emotional fluidity work is really, really important. Um, for me, it's you could say fear. Like maybe we need to do a podcast on fear, because I think fear is an interesting one, and that's been coming up for me a lot, because there's different types of fear.
Right.
But as an emotion, fear has been the thing that's like, what am I resisting? Well, I'm resisting putting myself out there more because I have fear of people not taking me seriously,
Yep.
or I have fear of there's different types of fear, or you know, I don't want to move completely into this like relationship that's actually aligned with me, because there's parts of my past relationship and the way things were that I didn't grieve yet. Right. So, and we're talking about all of this. And that's why I say this question for you is something that you can't just ask to your mind. You need to kind of sit yourself down and run that question through your entire being. What am I resisting right now? Not in my mind, but inside of my body. Which emotion am I resisting? And then it's not about trying to figure out that resistance. It's more about like, how do I love that resistance?
Mm-hmm.
How do I love it? And that's what we're doing as practitioners. Basically, we teach you how to guide someone through this process where you can start to pick up on subtle details of where there's expression and desire of the body wanting to complete something, and how do I give them permission, aka how do I show them how to love that part through matching and amplifying and giving them permission to let that resistance actually come up and out in a loving way.
Yeah. So I can already hear this question. At least I'm having this question. I'm assuming the audience probably has the same question. Like, how do you know the difference between something that you're resisting versus something that's out of alignment? Because they can, at least for me, they can feel very similar.
Yeah.
And it's been challenging at certain times of like, okay, is this thing just no longer in alignment with me? Or is it that I'm actually resisting doing some of the things that I need to do to bring myself into alignment with this path that I'm meant to be on?
Yeah. It's not resisting things that you need to do, but it's resisting, like, is there an emotion that you're resisting? And I wouldn't,
Mm.
when we get into the alignment piece, that that question will be solved if like that's a byproduct of sitting with the emotion that I am resisting right now. Because if there is an emotion that I'm resisting, well, that's the thing that's keeping me out of alignment. So I don't need to necessarily think about alignment, because alignment's going to happen when I'm not resisting something, meaning that I'm resisting the fear to tell this person that I actually don't want to be with them, or it's time to close the chapter on our relationship. I'm resisting that act is the thing that's going to correct the alignment of my life. But the reason I'm not doing it is because there's resistance.
Mm.
So the resistance is at the core. The alignment piece will happen. The action piece will be next, but the action piece is only going to happen if I'm not resisting the thing. Does that make
And
sense?
it totally makes sense. And to me, it's like, okay, then that leads us into this next podcast conversation around that fear thing, because in that resistance inherently is the fear around what actually comes next when I meet
Yeah.
that resistance, when I push through it and actually do the thing or say the thing or end the job or relationship. Like, how do I get comfortable with that uncomfortable what's next?
Yeah. That's, and we definitely should dive into this in the next one, but
Yeah.
um, to just kind of answer it shortly is the thing that's going to help you the most is processing the fear actually with somebody else.
Mm.
I think that we aren't, fear specifically is 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 tough by yourself, because a lot of our fear is that we're going to be alone. Um, Versus like anger and sadness, those are a little bit easier to process by yourself. Like everything's really nice to have somebody that's neutral, that is has an empathetic welcoming to them, that's not going to fix or change or have an agenda on your experience. But when we're processing fear, it's so much more helpful when we have the support of another person just to co-regulate with, because, and then that's going to answer kind of the next question is, if we have that person that, or people or community that has helped us process through the fear, well, then they're going to support us on the action that needs to take, that we need to take, right? They're going to support us. If somebody can support you in processing of your fear in a healthy, clean way, then you know that they are welcoming you as a verb, as a process, and that that welcoming is going to carry over, because they probably are going to want you to become, meaning take the actions necessary of that, those next steps, right? And it feels so
Yeah.
good to have people that have your back in that, that are there with you. Like, you have to do it, but you're not doing it alone. You have support from other people. You have community that's welcoming you in that. So that's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I I've loved this conversation, and just being mindful of the time in our container. I'd love to really put a pin in that fear conversation for the next podcast, because I think that's an avenue that a lot of us can really lean into and how we can expand from that. But Jaggers, if you're open to it, I'd love to just talk to our live audience for a second and see if there's any questions that they have that they want to expand upon based upon the conversation that we've had today.
Yeah, would love to hear from you all. And um, yeah, that being said, if you're listening to this on Spotify or listening to it anywhere, please feel free to message us. We are open to your questions and would love to support you guys in any sort of way. And we really built this podcast for you all, as a community, to really tackle and explore with curiosity the different things that we're navigating through life. Because chances are we're probably all navigating something similar.
It's one of the things that I continually notice through this community is that time and time again, and especially in the training when we send people out into breakout rooms, it's like they always get placed with that perfect partner that can reflect back to them that they're not alone in what they're doing, that they're not alone in what they're moving through, that they're not alone in the experiences that they've maybe already moved through in their life. And I think that is really, just to reiterate your point, Stephen, of like having some sort of a support system, whether it's a singular person or a community of people that you can reach out to, because it's so much better when you have somebody there to help support you.
Yeah. And I mean, this goes into everything that we're talking about, because when it comes to purpose, uh, it's because we feel alone that we need to find our purpose. It's
Yeah.
because there's an, and this goes back to everything we talk about. It's healing is a byproduct of connection. Purpose is a byproduct of connection. How connected you are in the present moment, and are you connected and moving closer to purpose or further away from it. And you won't know unless you're connected to your somatic awareness, right?
Right.
And for me, purpose has been so much more powerful when I'm connected to community and I'm connected to a movement that's important, that is that you can feel in the depths of humanity that we're needing, right? And that
Yeah.
becomes such a it's not my purpose, but it's I'm tapping into this greater purpose that we all kind of we're all kind of looking for. So it really is that we are not designed to do it alone. We're not. We are designed to co-regulate. We need each other.
Yes.
We do need each other. We need to feel connected. It is a need, not a want. It is a need that we need to feel connected. Um, so I'm seeing a question come up. Let's see. Can fear be reframed as a lesson so it doesn't feel so fearful? Um, can it be reframed as a lesson? I think that's, well, it can only be reframed after it's been felt, meaning that every recall is a reframe. This is a fascinating topic, meaning that like anytime you bring something back up in your memory, you are reframing it back into your being based on the state of that recall, not
Mm.
based on what originally happened. And this is, they've done a lot of studies on this with like MDMA therapy for with psychotherapy. Is that cool? Under the influence of certain substances that flood you with feel good chemicals, we can bring up the scary thing, and then based on the state that it's being recalled in, your state, you can see it and feel it from a very loving position, and it's going to be reframed inside of you. And but the piece on this is that you can't just do this in your mind. You can't just recall the thing and then expect it to reframe. The recall of it is, when I hear that word, I think of a mental recall, meaning that, I mean, somatic breathwork is actually a tool to recall things. It is a tool to, and you don't need to just recall it in your mind. You can actually just recall, basically we're mimicking a state of stress in your body as a recall mechanism to give your organism an opportunity to discharge, so that the reframe actually can happen. And you can, once you have that discharge, you move from a state of contraction, because that movement of energy, the feeling of the emotion, is the signal to your system that you're safe. And from that place, you can actually access a more elevated emotion. You can access a more open state of mind, so that you're reframing it as like, wow, this terrible thing that happened to me actually gave me so much purpose in my life. So it's, you can absolutely.
Mm.
That's what we're teaching, and this modality is a way to do that.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I love the repatterning rounds of the session so much, because
Of
that's what it's all
course.
about. It's about feeling good in your body again, and to recognize that like you actually deserve to feel good in your body. And if you can feel good in your body, it's that much easier to reframe or change the stories like we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another question that came through around fear. How can we process fear and not get stuck in it?
that's that's a good one. I love how this purpose podcast has turned into
Yeah.
fear, which is so helpful, you guys. It seems like we struck a nerve here. Um, with fear specifically, I think that yes, when you're doing it alone, it can easily feel like you're going to get stuck in it, or it's going to be too much for you to handle, because yeah, we're not designed to move through fear alone. And so part of that is having a loving, empathetic witness that's able to be there with you as you kind of titrate into it, because you don't want to go fully into the fear too much, too fast, too soon, where it's like it sends you into a freeze response, or it sends you into a trauma response, right? That's what you mean by get stuck in it. But there has to be a level of recall, right? There has to be a level of recall in the body to it for us to process it. And so a couple of the ways that how we can process fear and not get stuck in it is a little bit at a time, and having someone there with you. That's that and the caveat is that they understand meta skills, and they know how to attune to you, and they know how to be there with you without trying to fix or change your experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody who can hold space without there being any extra pressure.
Yes. Or
So,
they're not gonna try to push you too fast either.
right, right. Yeah. That kind of makes me think of my 30th birthday. I jumped out of a plane. I went on a tandem skydive. And, this was an experience I did with somebody else, and I felt the fear and plummeted towards the earth. But after that experience, like my fear of the dark, of spiders, of just all of these random things just completely disappeared.
So cool.
I don't necessarily recommend that for everybody because it was an instance of like too much too fast in the time, but it was such a interesting, like, moving through that after the fact to realize that, wow, facing the fear right there in that moment in such an extreme way allowed a lot of other things to move through without the intention of moving those things through.
Yeah, because it's so good. I see someone commenting on that. The the fear, the core fear, has almost tentacles to it
Yeah.
that become the different mind stories, right? And so when you get to the core fear, it naturally ripples out into all the different the mental sort of frame. So it's gonna, if you move through one fear, it's going to affect all the other fears.
Yeah. I mean, because everything is so intimately interconnected.
Absolutely.
So there's one more question that came through, another one on fear. Surprise, surprise. How can we move through fear in the moment to be able to understand the real message behind the feeling so that we can make the best decision in that moment?
Hmm. Well, part of it is cultivating a nervous system that has enough capacity and spaciousness to that you're not immediately going to get sent into a full shutdown experience, or you're not going to be sent into fight, flight, freeze, which is basically just, you're not going to get sent into involuntary action, meaning that if I have a nervous system that I've been cultivating, that is regulated, that is, I can experience fear in the moment, and it's not going to make me reactive in a way.
Mm.
Meaning that I can feel the fear, which it takes time, and this is why, like, just our there's no quick way to do this. It's a day-to-day practice of cultivating more spaciousness in our existence. It's by breath work and meditation and body work and yoga and movement and all of these things. What you're training for that moment, right? You're training
Yeah.
for that moment to cultivate a nervous system that has capacity, meaning it's not going to just go into nervous system breakdown quickly, or it's not going to be sent to my last nerve quickly, because you can only sort of see the real message behind it if you're not reactive, right?
Yeah.
So when you can, and it takes one thing that I want to say is, a lot of us negate how how much energy and time it takes to change. Like we our patterns a lot of the times have taken years to develop, right? And so it takes a lot of time for us to break out of um, certain defense responses that we have when something gets scary. Those patterns that have kept us safe, they're deeply in like those routes inside of our nervous system have been grooved so many times that to groove a new one, it's going to take some time. And so a little bit at a time is so important, but cultivating your spaciousness, your emotional fluidity, your nervous system regulation, all of those things are going to basically provide you enough spaciousness for when something does feel very scary, you're not going to get sent into reaction, and you can find that little window of space inside of the fear that that will allow you to like make the actual decision that you need to in that moment.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful reframe around the importance of like doing the self-development work, but
Mm-hmm.
doing the self-development work not with the pressure of needing to like change or fix yourself, but like doing the self-development work knowing that you're building capacity to handle that much more, to handle when life will inevitably send you something that's going to stress you out or going to send you into fear or going to send you into anger. But when you build more capacity within yourself, you can actually meet all of those things without getting out of alignment, without
Yeah.
getting so far into that emotion that now you're like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck here. How do I get out? How do I find my way back?
Mhm.
You never have to find your way back if you have enough capacity within yourself to be able to hold the things that will get thrown your way. You can move those aside and then continue walking forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, looks like we got one more that came through on purpose. How do we know if something is in alignment with our purpose, or how to depict excitement versus nervousness? And I know you've got a good one about excitement versus nervousness.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, nervousness is actually excitement without the breath. So it's a lot of times nervousness is there is excitement that's happening, excitement in our nervous system, and um, without it's involuntary, meaning that our breath, we can be conscious of it. So if you're nervous and you start to breathe, you'll be able to tell whether or not this is like, um, is because you can be excited in fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excitement just means that there's a pulsation of energy through you. Um, and a lot of the times, I mean, this is the only examples that I have for this is like people that like are like tend to trauma bond with others, meaning that I could get really excited if I'm dating the bad boy, right? That excites me. The the guy who's just not good for me, but there's something in it that's exciting in a way where it's like, but it's actually it's the excitement of your nervous system that sees an opportunity for you to reenact something in a way for you to learn the lesson
Yeah,
from it
yeah.
again. So
Back to that
yeah,
which we resist
that,
persist, right?
exactly, exactly. But the how do we know if something is aligned with our purpose? I mean, that's kind of like what we've been talking about here. Like, purpose is the meaning that you want to make on the world. What is the meaning that you want to make? And it's the meaning that's happening right now. So you're either connected to it or you're not connected to it. And then if something is aligned with it, well, the way that you will know is first being connected to yourself, and is this the meaning that you want to make on the world, right? Ask yourself that question. If something's coming up, well, is it aligned with the meaning that you want to make, the way you want to be, how you want other people to feel around you? what you want to embody. And it'll either be closer or further away from what you're, not where you're trying to get to, but what you're trying to be right now. And then that will, if you do that enough time, it becomes exponential, and then you get to where you want to go, right?
Mm. Okay, say that one more time. Not about where you're trying to get to, but just about being right now, right?
Yeah. So purpose is happening right now, and it's happening based on how connected you are to yourself.
Mm.
And the way you will figure that out, and that's not the word, the way that you will connect to it is first tuning in to what you are resisting. That's the doorway. Tune into what you're resisting, because what you resist persists, and that's in the way of you being able to feel purpose. That's in the way of you being able to feel the clarity right now that you want. And then from there, when you have stopped having all these things that you're trying to resist, well, it's much easier to hear the internal voice inside of you. And that becomes the compass where you immediately know something, if something's in alignment with you or not. Because is it the meaning that you want to make? And the way you will hear the meaning that you want to make is by that connection from moving through the things that you want to, that you're trying to resist, right? It's the clarity that's the byproduct of not resisting things, not resisting. I don't want to feel anger, or I don't want to feel sadness, or I don't want to feel fear. So you've stopped becoming squirmy when things happen. When something happens, like, I don't want to feel that, so I'm going to go this way. I don't want to feel that, so I'm going to go this way. Versus like, cool, I actually can maintain this clarity in the moment because there's not something I'm trying to avoid. So I know that's true. And then from there, it's like, what's that internal voice that is actually speaking from your core that's saying, like, this is purpose right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that is definitely a challenge at times to quiet this voice down enough to actually hear that internal voice that's being like, yeah, this is the thing. Stop overthinking it, stop questioning it. Like this is just the thing. Purpose is analogous to presence.
It is. And there, the last thing I'll leave you all with is something that's helped me is there is a, I can't remember who asked me, but there is there's almost like a seat that's in my heart.
Mm.
And is my consciousness parked there? Like, am I able to sit down in the chair that's inside of my heart, and from that place make the decisions? And if you're in your head and there's these loops and tunnels and all over, well, you're going to sit on the roller coaster and it's going to get real hazy. Um, that's why we do a lot of work on the inner critic. And then if you're avoiding the emotions that you haven't let yourself feel, then that's going to cloud. It's going to muddy your ability to sit in that seat that's in your heart.
Mm. I I love just that concept and that just like visual. If I think about that for a second of just like actually that's where the driver's seat is.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
passenger seat's up here, but yet it thinks it's doing all the driving. It's like reaching around the driver and trying to drive from
Yeah.
the back seat, right? But
Yeah.
really, like that's I think when life starts to become really clear, when I don't want to say it becomes easy because I don't think it ever actually really becomes easy because we'll always be like challenged to continue to show up of like how can we actually stay in that seat in the heart and not fall back to here. But
Right.
like when you are living from that heart, it's so much easier to be present.
Yeah, it's a good visual for me to know, am I moving off of my center, right?
Yeah.
Am I resisting something? Am I getting squirmy? Like, am I able to relax and sit in the heart?
Yeah.
So this was a great podcast. Thank you all for tuning in, whether it was live or via Spotify or YouTube. We are just so grateful for this incredible community that is just doing such important work on themselves first, and out in the world for other people. So if you are a part of this community already, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Give us a message. Let us know how you enjoyed this. If you are not part of this community, well, it's 100% free, live on School. You can find us at Soma+IQ. And if this landed and resonated with you, feel free to share it with a family, share it with a friend. And if you want to make our hearts flutter, you could leave us a 5-star review on Spotify. That's how we get this bad boy to grow and reach the hearts of more people. So thank you so much, Adam, for just everything that you are, brother. And I'm excited to continue diving deep with you. I can't
Yeah,
wait to see you in the in-person training next week.
I know it's going to be such a great blessing to be able to actually be in person, co-regulate the nervous systems together. And thank you again for just an amazing conversation. Just being the person that you are, sharing the wisdom of everything that you've learned with everybody. Like, I'm pretty sure I can speak for the whole community of just how much we honor and just really cherish you, Jaggers.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate it. Well, we got some big things coming. We have some awesome podcasts planned out.
Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to the next one where we'll dive in all on that fear.
Let's do it.
All right. We'll see you then.